These are the confessions of a rugby fixer. These will be dropping on Sundays because that's when confessions are best. I am a fixer. How did I become a fixer? Well, it's like most things in life. Think about rugby. You don't select your own position in the end. A series of coaches tell you what you're best at. Most of us think we know ourselves best, but it's really a compilation, a composite picture of the people who actually know you the best. If you put that all together, that's the amalgam that would be you. And I was always known as someone who could fix weird problems. I was also someone you could tell things to because I was not judgmental. I'd always done worse, or thought about worse, or about to do something worse. So if you had to tell me your worst day, a snapshot of the worst day of your life, that one moment, you could tell me. And to fix problems for the world's largest corporations or a hedge fund that desires secrecy, I have to be able to be nonplussed by whatever I'm about to be told. But I also have to make the CEO really tell me what he did. In a room, his wife next door, wanting to be inside, the other lawyers not getting the truth, the media message handlers, the sponsors. It's gotta just be me and the CEO, and we gotta get down to the nut. Rugby's like that. Is there any more truthful place than a locker room? The change room, the cloak room as we used to call it. The staccato sounds of your studs on the floor, the smell of the deep heat, the tackle you missed, the cold showers awaiting you. We live in a world where flaws are denied, obscured, obfuscated, but it's always the flaws that define us. You love me or I love you because of your flaws. Yes, in spite of them, but also kind of because of them. It's the very reason why you need a fixer. So I became a fixer over time because the conventional ways of law and barristerry and soliciting and examining legal memos of the pluses and minuses of the risks of opening a factory in Tanzania, in Dodoma versus Dar es Salaam, those were all kind of washed away with the larger exigency of when something's gone horribly wrong. The CFO took the money. The CEO is sleeping with the wrong person. There's a product that's actually dangerous and we gotta fix it. We did fix it, but we still have the fallout. Capital will preserve itself in millions of ways, just like a team. Press conferences are where people tell the least truth. They tell the most in the coaching room, as we saw in Chasing the Sun too, where people really get busy. I'll give you an example of how these age-old precepts, these flaws, which we know Rassie is very good at. Rassie has an ingenious way of finding the flaws of his foes. In New Zealand, they're living in the past. And they always think one more pass, one more offload will solve their problems. So Rassie absolutely knows that. Think back to 2018 in Wellington. That final pass from Damian McKenzie, which was snuffed out by Gianti. The French, they're too dependent on the boy wonder. He's brilliant. But the thing about brilliance in a team of 15 is if the people around that person don't develop their skills come crunch time, then you see what you saw in the quarterfinal, in the final 7 to 8 minutes. A stationary, gassed, out of ideas Antoine and Ramos or anyone else trying to create things that they weren't used to creating for a team that was sort of watching and waiting for their king to fix it. England, it's that they always think they can match, they can actually out-muscle us, because at times they did, but those times are gone. On and on. It's just the ability to see a flaw in the world rugby or the media that Rassie ascertains and then find a hole in it, whether it's loopholes, whether it's a way of organizing identity of a bench to become a bomb squad that surmounts age-old wisdom about being replacements. The one team that I don't think he's necessarily found a clear flaw and been able to really drive a hole into it is Ireland. Because Ireland is sort of doing the same thing to the Boks. And on the identification of flaw, perhaps Ireland is a little bit ahead. You know, if everything was equal, everything was being played in a laboratory conditions, you would think the Springboks should win that 4 or 5 times out of 6, 7. But it's sort of evens or even tilted to Ireland at the moment. If I had to think about one thing that Rassie is thinking about to fix that problem, it'd be finding the identifiable flaw, the thing that people love, the thing that people cannot do without. Find that thing, build it up, and then chop it off. Once upon a time, not too long ago, a hedge fund in the Hamptons reached out to me in a panic. The panic was exuding from their voice on the Zoom, their group voice. A hedge fund depends on solidity and trust, and that no one ever could fool them. They are in the business of knowing what will come next. The Hamptons are these rarefied little villages on the eastern shores of Long Island, so next stop Europe. It's peopled by, retired mafia chieftains, but also by the white shoe mafia, the day traders who became hedge funds, and they had been stolen from this group. We'll call them Y. So Group Y called me and said, our CFO has made off with the money. We understand you're the guy who finds people who don't want to be found. I said, I am that man. And what I try to do in those moments is listen through incisively to the thing that matters the most. And early on in the story, they told me that the man I was supposed to find, who had taken, let's say 10 million, but it could be more, was from Argentina, and that he was handsome. Then they spoke about many other things. And I found out where he was supposed to be with that money and what his general plan looked like it was going to be, which is to be in the empty quarter of Texas, a land where no one really lives, a land of legends, surreal, where compasses don't work, the Unabomber hid, and when Y2K was coming across the airwaves, people said there, it won't change anything here, don't worry about it. So apparently, the CFO, who was also an architect on the side, had taken the money, was trying to buy an all-terrain vehicle and get over the border and then just go all the way down, get to Panama, and then be safe. So I went down to the area of Terlingua, Marfa. I went to Presidio. I went to Contrabandos. I went to Santa Rosa. I went to Boquillas. And I just kind of lived. And this is one of the important things that I think Rassie and good rugby coaches do, is they live amongst it. They let wisdom seep into them. So I was out there for a while trying to locate this handsome guy from Argentina. And I found there were many movie makers there for some reason. They liked the light. That area has the darkest sky in both Americas. And so French dreamers and Japanese filmmakers make their bed there, and they lie in it. They take pictures. They try to design movies, even about the Old Testament. It could be anything. But I just sat amongst it in bars. I'd ride my bike, I'd hike, clean my gun, and just kind of try to learn what was going on in the area. It's a place where desperados go and dead enders. It's the kind of place where you're at the bar and you ask an old lady who's dressed up in a full cowboy getup, when did you move here? And she says, 1972. And you say, oh, what were you coming here for? And she said, I ran out of gas and never left. It's that kind of place. People keep to themselves, and many of them are off the grid. But I found myself learning the lingo of making a movie because I was bored, because I thought it might come in handy. You never know when things come in handy as a fixer. You got to know a lot about lots of things. And so I learned that there was a way to talk about light and making a movie that made sense. And by the end, I had convinced myself that I'd written a script, I kind of had, and that I was making a movie. And in my mind, I kind of was. I went to the Starlight Cafe, the theater, One night, it's the kind of place where you can look forever and ever into Mexico. The defile and canyons, the painted sky, brilliant at night. And as the sun went down and I was eating a quail, a man walked in whose brilliance shone through the bar. He was the most handsome man I'd ever seen. It was one of the few times in my life where I felt ugly, just to be in his presence. And I thought, flaw, that's my man. I walked over there and he was had a strange table. He had the New York Times on it in the middle of nowhere, in a place where everyone thinks New York Times is a swear word. He was looking at the architectural section. This is my man. Instead of getting invitation, I pulled up a chair with my foot and sat down on it. And I said, I'm making a movie. I told him about my movie and what I wanted to do inside that movie. And I said, I need a handsome man who doesn't say a word in the background. He was already excited. His flaw was vanity. The pathway was flattery. The existence was boredom, and I offered him a pathway to get through it. Within 10 minutes, we were talking about how we could cite some of the picture and the screen work around where he was living. And I said, let's go see it. Within 5 or 10 minutes, we were inside his kitchen, talking about how we could put some of that in the movie. But always I came back to the idea that he hadn't gotten his due, his just desserts. And as he was thinking, I've got this money, I'll escape. Wouldn't it be funny if I'm also in a movie, just as a giant FU to the establishment? I just said these simple words to him. I need the money. I think about rugby as a series of mismatches and surprises. I think about it as finding the flaws of your enemy. Sometimes that flaw, like you said, is the brilliance of one of your players, and therefore the concomitant lack of confidence in others. I think about it as cross kicks that come out of nowhere, like Mani's famous no look. And whether that next series of steps involved a backhoe in a cemetery to dig out 1/3 of the treasure, walking down a canyon with the handsome man from Argentina to get one other third, and deciding how much I would let him have and how much I would let the sheriff have to get it done before the bag went on the plane to the small airfield and went back to parts civilized. When I slept that night after I knew that I'd gotten the money, I realized that he had never been able to grapple with that flaw. So even though I think Rassie is being very good at finding the flaws of other teams, England's belief in its physicality, the French adulation of their Napoleon, New Zealand's faded grandeur of the past, and we're still searching for that Irish bad luck, find the luck of the Irish and make it disappear. I was thinking that you also have to always make sure that you know your own flaws. And that's what I've done for most of my life as a fixer. I know where my faults lie, and I kind of lead with them. I think the Boks have had a hard time absorbing the fact of being favorite, of expecting to win, going in, and winning when they're supposed to win. Even in Argentina. Even when there is no doubt they are favorites. That flaw will be the thing that separates the Springbok team from being the best of all time, from being a very, very good team that was in the conversation as one of the possibly best ones. These are the confessions of a rugby fixer. We'll be doing these every Sunday. I'm one half of the Lekker Rugby pod, I'm one half of the 8-9 combo pod, and I'm one half Grizzly Bear. If you have a problem, I am probably your man to fix it. In rugby, whether you're too splintered in a mall, or in life when someone's made off with the money. Looking forward to it. Let's do this more.